So at every meeting, I get to share with you an important quote that is inspiring for all of us. Last month, we heard from Eleanor Roosevelt. Today, we hear from Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who said that democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choice are prepared to choose wisely. Choose wisely. The real safeguard of democracy, therefore, is education. We're trying to do here today. And in other venues, plenty of other venues, if people listen. So, yay. I'm here to talk about what we will be voting on. Would you mind clicking these forward? Not yet. So, today we take a closer look at the upcoming elections to better understand the significance of our votes and to learn how to navigate the elections process and to learn where to find some important information, all in order to help us choose wisely. Okay. So, here's the path we're going to take today as we learn to choose wisely. In addition to deconstructing election schedules, we will learn what's on our ballots and where to find more information. We'll learn about the powers that different office holders exercise. We'll explore voting decision criteria and develop a set of questions you would like the league to pose to candidates in order to populate our Vote 411 page. And we do all of this to educate ourselves so that we may make wise choices in casting our votes. So, each of you should have already, I want one. Oh, I have one right here. Each of you should have a handout that has Washington County's election schedule on one side and the Sullivan County schedule on the other side. Okay. So I'm going to use the Washington County one for most of this part of the presentation. I love its organization. It's easier to follow than any of the others I've found, so yay. So let's walk through here. So look at, you see 4 columns. I'm going to start at the first column labeled elections. And you'll see there, those are the 3 boxes with 3 major 2024 election dates. This schedule, by the way, is really a great tool to help you keep track of deadlines and what you have to do and where you have to go and so on and so forth. And to share this information with your friends, neighbors, strangers, grocery clerks, whomever. We're counting on you to share information with your respective communities. So even though I know we're preaching to the choir in this space, you folks are great conduits to the dissemination of this important election information. All right, now, back to column 1. So we have in each box the election dates, the major categories of the election, see? Voter registration deadlines that are applicable to each date. And of course, they're going to be a little different as we progress through the year. I guess it's scheduled in a date relation to the election date. So you want to keep up with that. If you have to make changes, now's the time to do it. Let's see, voter registration deadlines applicable to each date and the early voting period for each date. Now, moving to the second column, That is the one that focuses on absentee voting information. If you're over 60, you're eligible to absentee vote, by the way. If you're not over 60, I'll share a form with you that lists other exceptions that allow you to absentee vote. Anyway, the absentee voting has 4 major steps that are bracketed with deadlines. One is to make sure you're eligible. Second, if so, request an absentee ballot from the Election Commission early in the process. You want to start it early. Don't be late. Then you complete and return the request form, and then the county elections officials will send you an actual absentee ballot in the mail, and I'm going to urge you not to delay in completing it and returning that ballot by U.S. mail to your election officials. You can find full instructions. This is by no means a full report of how to do absentee voting, so I'm going to refer you to the full instructions on the Washington County Elections Commission website. Now, the third column is the candidate information column. It indicates candidate deadlines for picking up and filing their petition to run and be on the ballot, and they file it at the Election Commission's offices within the dates specified for each election. These petitions are then vetted by election commissions and possibly other authorities to verify that a candidate meets basic qualifications to be on the ballot. Ballots will be published after the withdrawal deadline. What's the withdrawal deadline for the August election? Anybody? April 11th, right? So we won't know until after April 11th who's really going to be on the ballot, and that is still subject to our local election commission's approval of a ballot and who's on there. So that's a standby. So if you came here thinking we're going to tell you who the candidates are, we're not going to do that, because we don't know. We're not able to tell that future. Now here's a tip. The Washington County Election Commission publishes a list of candidates who have picked up and have filed their petitions in the county. And that list includes contact information for each of the candidates, which provides a key point of access if needed to talk to a candidate that you might not be able to track down any other way. So go to the website and you can find that detail there. I checked with Sullivan County. Their website has a list of candidates who have filed, but it doesn't have that richer information. Nonetheless, you can get that information from the Supervisor of Elections in Sullivan County. Noel?
Just a question. If I want to be a candidate and I go and get that information, do I have to get so many signatures to be on the ballot?
That is beyond my pay grade.
All right.
But I'm seeing a local expert nod her head. Would you like to share? No? Okay. Okay. Well.
That was right.
All right.
There's a hypothetical.
All right, let's move on. I'm sorry I can't answer every single detail here. This is like 30,000, no, let's make this a 15,000 foot flyby of the election schedule and what to expect in this process. So, that fourth column, check that out. Isn't that the meat of today's talk? I would think so. It specifies which offices are open to election and on which dates. Now, if the offices are partisan races, that is, we have to have a Democrat selected and a Republican selected, then you're gonna find those races to appear on this list twice, right? For the primary and for the general. For the primary to select the D and the R, and then for the general to select among those two, plus any independents or write-in candidates. What else? And obviously, if an office is a nonpartisan office, then you're only gonna find them in that fourth column one time, right? In a general election. In order to help me sort this out, I created this crazy table to help me flag for me which races are partisan and which races are nonpartisan by putting in, when the primary is for the president and the general for the president. And for the county offices, those 3 offices in the county assessor property, Washington County School Board seats, and constables, those are partisan seats. And so their primary was March 5th, and we will vote on those offices in August, this August. Okay, so that's good to keep in mind. And that information is on this schedule. You just have to spend a little time with it, and it'll pay off handsomely if you understand. Regarding partisan and nonpartisan elections, the Washington County races, the Johnson City Commission is a nonpartisan race, and there's only one election, right? So that's on November 5th. I'm not going to say any more about that. All right. Now, I want to spend a few minutes talking about powers and authorities of selected voices on offices. I'm not going to try to explain them all. Some of them, frankly, are a little impossible. But the Johnson City government stands out because it's a council manager form of government. The mayor in the Johnson City Council, it serves as more of a ceremonial role, while the commission appoints a professional city manager who serves at the direction of the commission. Johnson City Commission has 5 members serving 4-year staggered terms. They're nonpartisan. Johnson City Council is a nonpartisan office. The mayor is actually selected from among the commissioners by the commission, and the mayor serves for a 2-year term. She presides over commission meetings. She has a voice and a vote, but the charter says expressly that she does not have veto power, unlike executives in other tiers of government. The commission sets policy and establishes ordinances of the city, appoints the city manager, approves annual budgets, levies and collects taxes and special assessments, approves purchases over $50,000, appoints members to the city boards. And the commission, by the way, the commission can only change the charter through a local referendum approved by the voters. And we will return to that subject in a bit. All right, now Jonesboro and Kingsport both have boards of mayor and aldermen who are elected through a nonpartisan process. Jonesboro's election is in November, while Kingsport is in August. Anybody here from Kingsport? Okay, so you you got a little time to figure this out. So the Jonesboro mayor only votes to break a tie. The Jonesboro mayor doesn't vote in every resolution that comes through, just breaks a tie. While Kingsport mayor has full voting power, and their charter explicitly denies veto power to the Kingsport mayor. So both of these BMA's members are elected to 4-year terms, while their mayors both serve 2-year terms. The BMA has a full governing power of a general government, much like what I rattled off for you for Johnson City. Taxing, purchasing, passing ordinances to regulate any of a bunch of things that happen in the public arena. Contracting, operating public utilities, roads, condemning property or eminent domain. Both towns, cities hire a professional city manager or administrator, then serves under the direction and supervision of the BMA. The manager is primarily responsible for enforcing laws, hiring, management and firing of employees, etc. So also on this slide, there's one long set of Board of Education / school board offices. All of them, except Bristol's at the bottom, which I'll get to in a moment, are elected in a partisan election. School boards are policy-making bodies, and where they, in areas where they don't exercise that power for policy, the policy is often left to the discretion of the superintendent of schools. A school board has primary authority over school matters subject to legislative change, as we may have seen recently. Their primary duties include setting salaries for employees, hiring that superintendent, approving evaluation plans, purchasing supplies, furniture, and other furnishings, working with the county commission or the city commission to acquire or dispose of property. Regarding budgets of school boards will prepare a budget, and typically the first iteration is delegated to the superintendent, and the school board then puts their input, and what comes out of that process then goes to either the county commission, if it's a county school board, or the city commission, if it's a city school board. And those hire legislative bodies. School board is not a legislative body, just county and municipal, and of course, state General Assembly members. Those are lawmaking bodies. Anyway, school boards are not that, and they depend on county or city commissions to approve their budgets. And county and city commissions can change those dollars, at least. At a minimum, they can change the bottom line. And then I'm sure there's plenty of negotiation in the process of coming to a final budget figure, either with or without concurrence of the school board. Now, let's look at Bristol City Council and Bristol School Board, and I wanted to talk about them specifically. First of all, the City Council is a partisan race. The school board is not a partisan race. And each of these bodies is composed of 5 members who serve for 4-year terms. What both bodies illustrate, though, is a mix of district and at-large offices, positions. So in both of these bodies, 3 of the members of the city council and 3 of the members of the school board in Bristol are elected by district. Sort of like in Washington County, county commissioners are elected by districts. But Bristol City Council and School Board have reserved 2 of their seats each to be elected at large. So what does that mean? And I know you folks are really savvy, but I'm just going to remind you because I want you to be able to say this to your neighbors. And that is when offices like this are voted on at large, that means the at-large candidates have to persuade the entire city, the entire electorate in the city to vote for them, whereas the ones who are elected by district can just focus on the people within the boundaries of their district, right? Why would they do this? Why would they split it up like this? And a big reason is the district confined candidates count on the voters within their districts. And so the voters in their districts may have very parochial interests to serve and to add demand of their elected official. And so you might get, in Bristol, 3 different sets of priorities represented in those districts. Whereas if you're an at-large elected official, that offers a bit of equalization so that no one district is going to dominate the entire city, right? So they've done this in both offices. Now, another discovery I made is when I researched constables. Constables don't get a salary. They get paid by fees. They charge fees for the offices, the services they provide. And their primary function is service of process in legal proceedings. But some of them may be authorized by the county or the city to provide policing services, and they have to have gone through special training for that. But the amazing thing is, for all those other constables at least, they're not supervised by anybody but you, and you, and you, and you, and me. That's it. They don't answer. I have to qualify that because I'm a lawyer. They can be held to account in civil court and criminal court if their behavior amounts to, a tort or a crime or some other civil cause of action. But by and large, I was stunned to learn that nobody's really watching these people.
Wow.
Yeah. So, how many of, well, I won't go there. A little different direction. I want to encourage all of you to vote on both county and municipal elections that appear on your ballot, because both county and municipalities forces have an effect on you. If you're in a city, if you're in the county, you still need to pay attention, and you may be impacted, but I can't make a general statement about that. Anyway, so both levels of these governments affect your taxes and government services you count on, like schools and roads and water and wastewater, law enforcement, and so on. So it's wise to be an informed citizen, aware of how public entities affect your communities, and aware of the ways we can engage with government to let them know our views on past and pending policy decisions. Right? Use your voice. Somebody saw a program recently where somebody said the bare minimum we can do is vote. there's a whole lot more things we can do to make our voices heard. And this goes actually for elections at all levels of government, but know that you can have a much more direct and personal impact on our local public leaders than you can those in Washington or Nashville. And I think that you'll find that most leaders appreciate hearing from their constituents. Okay, now turn over your paper to the Sullivan County side. And I just want to focus on the bottom right-hand section. And that is the section that relates, not the right-hand section. Anyway, the bottom section relates to the November 5th election. And if you look hard down there in the 3rd column down, offices on the ballot, you'll see in the middle of that November 5th column, you see Johnson City School Board, and further down, Johnson City Commission. Well, guess what? We're looking at Sullivan County. What the heck is Johnson City there for? It was very puzzling to me. So I called Dana Jones and said, Dana, what's up here? And what I heard was that, that situation doesn't exist just in Sullivan County voting on Johnson City, but also in Carter County. And what's happened that started that is Johnson City annexed land in Sullivan and annexed land in Carter. And so those people in those annexed areas now have a voice and a vote affecting Johnson City schools and Johnson City. So it's good to know. Those are the only really weirdo kind of geographic anomalies I discovered.
And then the other parts of those of Sullivan County are not, they would not vote for a Johnson City.
Right, all the rest of Sullivan County is free of having to think about Johnson City elections. Similarly, all the rest of Carter County will not be burdened by Johnson City drama. Okay? All right. Now, okay, let's go. Referenda. A referendum is a policy question that is put to the people to vote on. The vote may be binding or non-binding. Government charters can require that certain policies or charter changes be subject to approval by citizens via the referendum process. The deadline here for submitting referenda to put on the ballot has not arrived yet. And as of last week, there were no referenda filed for the August election. However, right, some of you may have noticed news articles or television stories about proposed charter changes in Johnson City. So I put on each table a document that looks like this, that I came across with some help. It was handed out at a recent public meeting. So it spells out what charter changes are under consideration that may or may not be submitted for referendum in August or maybe even November. The brochure, that paper that I shared, describes only the city's arguments in support of each change, but there have been concerns raised by citizens concerning their measures the measures. And the Johnson City Press has published a few articles. I think in fairness, first of all, I'm going to be assembling a list of websites for all of you, and we'll try to get it into the newsletter ASAP, so you can find these bits of information that I'm counting on. So I'm looking right now at an article in the Johnson City Press dated April 4th by Kayla Hackney. And she's reporting about the Johnson City Board of Commissioners hearing from citizens about these 4 ordinances that would become referenda if they're approved, including one that would move city elections from November to August. So you see the commissioners' kind of rationales on that paper. And here are some things that Kayla reported about citizen commentary on at least the election date change. There was a citizen who said, the city commission is saying let the voters decide, but we're putting this on a ballot where we know that much fewer voters will participate in August than in a November election, which is a presidential election. And all Americans know we vote in November. Citizens also expressed concern over term extensions of the current board members. That's all I know about that. One citizen spoke in favor of it and said that not everybody who shows up in November is even aware there is voting going on at the local level. Commissioner Joe Wise pointed out that election turnout in August, when county elections are held within the city, has historically been low. Wise said that by combining city elections with county elections, turnout of voters interested in local elections as a whole may increase. He said it's recognizing that there is opportunity to increase turnout in an August election and make it more focused. Another requested amendment would reduce the number of readings of new ordinances from 3 to 2. So currently the city commission has to meet and hear comment, whatever, on ordinances they're looking to approve. They have to do that 3 times right now, and now they want to reduce it to 2. One citizen remarked, it takes a while for the average citizen to know what's going on in city government. It takes an amount of time for your average voter, average citizen to find out what's going on and whether or not it affects them. Commissioners argue that a majority of municipal boards across the state only hold 2 readings. That does draw out the ordinance process. Oh gosh. Anyway, so this other commentary. Well, tell you what, I'm going to give you the links to several of these articles rather than me stand here and try to read it to you. Now, another thing I'm needing to talk to you about is what's on your ballot and how to find out. So I'm also going to provide you folks are savvy people. You can find these links on your own, but I will provide the links to Washington and Sullivan and the other counties in our area. But I also wanted to bring to your attention, go vote TN. And so, here we are. This is go. Okay. then I won't tell you about it. I'll tell you about it, but I won't be able to show it to you. GovOTN is an app that is really rich, and I have it on my phone, I have it on my computer. It's just not wanting to talk to you guys, so I'll talk to you. You put in your address or your friend's address or your a family member's address, and if you're a registered voter, there's all sorts of information in there for you. For example, you can find your polling locations, you can find ballot information. The moment it's available, you're going to find it there. You can find the names and offices of all the elected officials who represent you, every tier of government. You know who, so if you want to write a love letter to a few of your representatives, that's where you start to find out who they are. There is voter information about you, which you know you need to check and make sure is very current, and if it's not current, get it current. You can see what districts you vote in your community. That's critical information, so you know you can focus on who's a candidate for what districts. You can do online voter registration, and you can see election results. So that's the end of that. Now, I am going to give you a break and invite our league vice president, Ramsey McGowan, who's going to guide us through an exercise that's meant to help us develop decision criteria so that we can choose wisely this election season. So I hope you took notes. I know it's dense, there's a lot here, but it's worth the effort.
Hi. So we're going to be handing out a little handout, and I don't want you to panic when you see it because it looks a little bit crowded. It's not homework. It's not a worksheet where you have to fill in every block. It is for you to personalize. So it has options for you to do, to put information in about a variety of criteria you might use for voting, but the purpose is for you to identify the criteria in those categories that you consider most important. And you may not in every category consider even the overall category important. So you will see a handout on one side that is blank, and on the other side that has examples filled in. They are just examples, certainly not suggesting everyone should be concerned or consider a priority every one of these topics. That would be impossible. But just to get you thinking of the kinds of things that might be in there. And at different levels of government, you might have different criteria for a candidate for federal office, a candidate for state office, a candidate for municipal office. So when it comes to fiscal matters or tax policy, the senators and representatives we're electing in November, federal elections, they will be dealing with the tax code. The 2017 tax code that was passed in 2017 expires, and it will either have to be renewed, revised, or an entirely new budget developed for the federal government. So who you elect for federal government, so if you're concerned about tax policy, that would be an issue for perhaps those candidates, whereas for local government, it might be fiscal policy related to school funding or any number of other things. The same thing with categories related to, say, zoning or land use at the federal level. It might be something about national parks or drilling or on federal property. At the local level, it might be things like the county commission dealing with the Bitcoin mine and the noise problems. So you kind of apply these in the way that applies to the level you're working with. So I will say just a couple of things. One is, hopefully just by skimming these categories and thinking about what's most important to you, you'll be able to take an awareness that there is no perfect candidate. Nobody's gonna line up with what you think the most important thing in every category is. But if you identify the 1, 2, or 3 most important things and realize if you can identify candidates closest to you overall on those important things, then you'll be further along in deciding which of these candidates is better. No one's gonna be perfect, but one will probably be better than the other, and that's a way to use this. So, we're not gonna really take time to fill this out completely, but I want you to look at sort of the opposite side, the blank side, and see how you might use it. Look at the examples if you need something to sort of start your juices rolling in terms of figuring out what the categories and topics are that you might want to ask candidates about, because in just a second, we're gonna ask you at your various tables to help us develop questions that we can pose. And if you started thinking about, these are the things I really care about, so these are the things I would want to question about, might help with that as well. So I don't really see a reason to take time on filling that out right now. When we are doing the table exercise, doing the questions that Dave's gonna kick off in just a minute, if you end up talking about these, that would be perfectly fine. But I think we can combine those two processes if that's, okay? So that's, yes.
You could just mark the ones that they have suggested and then add another one. That would be real quick.
Yeah, but they're also still you can, if it works for you. The whole point here is to find a system that works for you. So if those broad sort of categories like tax or fiscal or land use are enough, but you may want to narrow it down to 1 or 2 specific points. So just whatever way works for you is the whole point of having a handout like this. So I'll hand it back to Dave.
Okay, I'm not sure. Okay. The next topic we want to provide you with information about is how could you locate some of the positions, some of the biographical or background characteristics of the candidates. And so there are these 3 rich sources online. The first one is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the United States, and that's called Vote 411. I've just provided you here with the landing page, but if you have a smartphone, you want to look it up, it's vote411.org, and all of these are rich sites that you can explore screen after screen. The sample ballot is finding out what's on your ballot is of interest to us. At the end of the session today, we're actually going to do our part in developing this database for local candidates. I'll have you provide us with some sample questions. The statewide league has, and the national, have banks of questions. We're going to put together a little task force and draw up a set of questions that will be sent to each of the qualified candidates. Practically speaking, candidates don't always respond, but we had a positive experience last go round where once 2 or 3 of them had their responses available to the public, the others said, oh, I must have lost the letter, asking me what I thought on these issues. So there's some peer pressure among candidates, unfortunately not peer pressure from voters to candidates is as strong as we'd like it to be. So Vote 411 is one resource. The next one is Vote Smart. This one's been around for decades, but is, I think, kind of a hidden gem. You can see from this landing page, there's all kinds of information. And it comes down to the level here of our state representatives. It doesn't go lower than that. It also has a bias to incumbents. Those are the people who've made speeches, who've taken votes. And so it's harder to find out in all these databases about challengers than it is about incumbents. But the right-hand tab, funding, comes from Open Secrets database, which studies who's giving money to whom in our political system. And so I found that very fascinating. But again, money has flowed over years to longtime incumbents, whereas challengers, there may not be money, as much data, especially when there's a lag in these filings that are required of candidates about who is paying for access. I think that's the nicest way to talk about money in our system. So anyway, the ratings one is interesting because if you have a group like the National Rifle Association or the, I don't know, American Association of University Professors, they may rate candidates on their key values or issues, and so you can see where they stand in those terms. Okay, and the third database is Ballotpedia, and this one, again, you can have their lookup tool and find out what's on the ballot. I went there recently and they haven't loaded it yet. They sort of had a message saying stand by. Not all the candidates, well, it was before April 11th at noon when the candidates were required to have their filing. And then there's I think a 2-week period where the parties can disqualify the candidates that have filed to kind of enforce their rules on the candidates as well. So those are 3 online sources that I encourage you to check and check and check as the campaigns progress to give you additional information. And then, as Ramsey said, these ratings and other sources of information may matter to you, or they may not matter at all, but at least you have a set of resources to consider. Okay, next slide.
I'm going to kind of close things out a little bit. If you're in the middle, you don't have to leave, you don't have to stop working, but we have just
No instructions.
so we're getting near the end, and so I wanted to tell you that here's next month. So now we know what we're voting about, but the big thing we have been told over and over by the election administrators of all the local counties is we don't need to push registering people. They're registered. They are not going to the polls. Tennessee is almost dead last. What was it, Dave? 48, 49? In all the states of the voters who actually go to the polls. So especially in the local elections, it can be narrow. It could be, 5 votes, 20 votes. So it really does matter. So we are really going to be working hard on getting out the vote, and we're going to talk about it next time and try to get a lot of different ideas about what we can do. Not everyone has to do everything. And so we can play to our strengths in that. Let's see, was there anything else before I? Just be sure that Dave has a final copy of your questions. And again, if you need to stay a few more minutes to do that, that's fine. There is there are chicken salad sandwiches and really good cookies in the back, and there are to-go boxes. Because we have paid for this, it comes with the room, and they really can't, they have to throw it out. So I would rather you take a few home. And we hope to see you next month. Any final questions from any of you? Yes.
So there seems to be a little excitement among a few people in this room to talk about those possible proposed referenda. So if you want to do that, gather here somewhere and have at it for a little while. We can't be here all night. But yay.
Joy?
Well, and I'm not interested in asking people to stay, because otherwise they'll be out. If people don't stay, it doesn't help me out. But I'm just curious about folks' general sense of moving local elections to August instead of November. Those that think just at the surface, that's a good thing. Those that would not, and maybe a couple of reasons why. Yeah.
So I've heard some of the reasons for moving the elections from November to August, and one of them is ballot fatigue, because the farther you get down the ballot, the more tired you get. But I looked at all the elections between 2016, when the city commission first went to November, and up through now, and even looking at the sheet here, the November elections always have fewer things on the ballot than the, do I need to?
Yeah.
The November elections always have fewer things on the ballot than the August elections. Last year, I don't remember, not last year, but 2022, I don't remember if you remember voting on the August ballot, but that was massive. There must have been 30 things on it, and there was only 10 in November. And that was a special thing because we had 4 constitutional amendments in November. So it can be a big difference sometimes. Sometimes it's just a few, sometimes it's a big difference, but that, it doesn't solve ballot fatigue to move it to this one that's already got a lot of things.
Oh, question. If the ballot, if you moved it, would you take what's on the August ballot and move it to November?
No.
No, they're talking about taking the municipal elections
Yeah.
in November to move them back to August. So the primaries then would be in March.
But what will you do with all those things that makes the ballot that much longer if you have?
It would still be there. All the state and federal primaries, all the county elections, all of everything that's there
Well,
would
see,
still be there.
that's one of the reasons I heard that you didn't want to move it because it makes the ballot too long.
And that's your argument, right?
Yeah.
So you're against moving it.
Yes.
Or there's the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. Allison, what's an argument for you? Why would you vote?
I think voter awareness, if we were talking about the lack of turnout levels, and if you continue to operate under that function, trying to focus people to vote in November is one mountain to climb. If you're moving things back to August, I think there's a lot more visibility, just like Becky said, Americans know to vote in November. It's kind of brought you from elementary civics class. And so I think trying to have that, there's enough dates everyone's had already.
Anybody else?
It's more expensive to have 2 voting times.
The voting times probably all over the place. We already have one municipal election in August because it's a nonpartisan one. So that would be something to try to evaluate what the cost impact would be.
Yeah, one of the questions that's come to mind for me though is, for me, I am concerned about turnout currently. I'm embarrassed, and it doesn't matter who's on the ballot, and that's going on. But also being informed, and I wonder how many people are voting in general elections without good information. If they are, people go, I know, a lot of people will vote in November because they're voting just for the presidency. But are they voting for local elections at all? I don't know how we get that data. And, if they're not informed, then should we be concerned about uninformed voters?
Oh, yeah. I heard Dana Jones speak recently, and I was surprised. She gave this even though it looks like, oh, turnout's higher in November, I'm curious about the down ballot races, how it actually compares, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'm just curious about where we would land, so that's the full things.
I wonder if Dana can give us that, can get that information. About who just votes for the top of the ballot and ignores all the down ballot. I would like to know that to compare, because, yeah, it can get either way.
Math, but I'll do a little of it. So look at how many votes were cast for the presidential.
Oh, yeah.
Then you look at the down ballot races and you add up what all the different candidates got. And if, if Biden and Trump got this many total votes, then you tally it up.
Okay. Ramsey, our great researcher, knows how to figure it out.
I think the major thing is that people don't understand that the local elections affect them more than the
Right,
presidential.
right.
So it's a matter of us educating people that
That's
local
true, that's true no
elections
matter when it is that the local elections are critical.
more important to their daily lives.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. This has been a lot of great information. Dave's collected some good information for our Vote 411. And once we get that populated, we'll be giving you the heads up on that. Again, take swag, take pens, take food. Don't go home empty-handed.